Silk Road, or what many on the dark web call the Silk Road Marketplace, wasn't just a website. It was an empire built on everything forbidden, illegal, and dangerously tempting. Every shady deal you could imagine happened there. Every hidden transaction, every secret request. What made it terrifying wasn't just the criminal activity. It was the power behind it. Interpol spent years trying to shut it down. Every time they got close, every time they launched an operation, the site would disappear, only to return weeks or months later, stronger than before, more secure, more untouchable. People whispered that behind Silk Road stood forces greater than the governments hunting it, secret entities with influence beyond the world's superpowers. And in that world, Silk Road was a red line. Cross it, interact with it, or threaten it, and you might vanish from existence without a single trace. Yet, against all logic, against all fear and danger, someone managed to steal over $3 billion from this monstrous underground giant. Even more unbelievable, the owner of the site, considered one of the most dangerous human beings to ever operate online, contacted the thief personally, offering him a reward of 4,000 bitcoins just to explain how the hack had been done. But the hacker refused, and that refusal turned the entire story into something no one could have predicted. Now let me tell you something even stranger. The story of a hacker who played with fire on the world's biggest dark web platform, stole unimaginable amounts of money, lived like a king, and then made choices so bizarre that no logical mind could justify them. He got himself into a mess so risky, so irrational, so absurd, yet he kept going until law enforcement, investigators, and federal agencies were forced to chase after him, all because of a treasure lighter than 20 grams. This is not just a hacking story. This is a psychological thriller. But before diving in, grab your coffee. Because to understand what really happened, you need to grasp how Silk Road worked and just how deep, dark, and dangerous this rabbit hole truly went. Silk Road wasn't just a marketplace. It was the marketplace of the dark web. It sold everything, and I mean everything, from small illegal weapons to high-grade drugs, to forged passports, and even human organs. Imagine Amazon, but stripped of morality, law, and safety. Anyone could open a store. Anyone could list products. Anyone could buy anything. But the danger wasn't just the illegal products, it was the environment itself. The dark web is full of predators, hackers, scammers, cybercriminals with no limit. Entering Silk Road meant exposing yourself to people who could, with a single click, destroy your identity, drain your accounts, or blackmail you with your own data. Even massive multinational companies occasionally get hacked. Silk Road was 1,000 times more vulnerable and 1,000 times less forgiving. In this world, one role mattered more than anything else: absolute secrecy. Your name? Fake. Your IP? Masked. Your accounts? Disposable. Your money? Completely untraceable. And that's why Bitcoin became the oxygen of the dark web. When Bitcoin first appeared, it wasn't mainstream, it was an experiment. But on Silk Road, it became the standard currency. Many believe hackers themselves were behind its creation, using it to build an economy where nothing could be traced. To buy anything on Silk Road, you needed a whole operation. Acquire crypto from legal exchanges, use specialized browsers like Tor to enter the dark web, make encrypted purchases, and vanish without leaving a footprint. Now that you understand how this world works, you're ready to meet the man who broke it. Jimmy Jong didn't look like the kind of guy who would one day challenge the most dangerous website ever created. Born on April 13, 1990 in the state of Georgia, USA, Jimmy was of Asian descent, living in a predominantly white Germanic community. His childhood was marked by racism, bullying, and isolation. School wasn't just difficult, it was traumatic. When he was 12, his parents divorced. He stayed with his mother and eventually convinced her to buy him a computer, claiming he needed it for school. But the truth? He wanted to play games. That computer became his escape and soon his obsession. He spent countless hours experimenting, modifying files, bending game systems, and unintentionally laying the foundation for his future as a hacker. The obsession spiraled so far that his mother once got arrested for forging school documents just to excuse Jimmy's absences. He ended up spending a month in a mental re-evaluation facility. Then he was transferred to an experimental tech institute designed to nurture gifted minds. That was the spark, the beginning. Jimmy studied programming at the University of Georgia, but college didn't satisfy him. He wanted something more exciting, more chaotic. He worked briefly as a designer, creating digital art and promotional material. But soon, he became obsessed with cybersecurity, vulnerabilities, and the darker side of the internet. He learned that every website, every system, every platform had weaknesses, and he trained himself to find them. He became a master of discovering loopholes, tiny flaws that most developers overlooked, but which allowed access to bank accounts, crypto wallets, or admin panels. Hackers on the dark web paid generously for these secrets. Jimmy suddenly realized something. He was making more money selling vulnerabilities than he ever could with a normal job. And the deeper he went, the more he became addicted to the thrill of breaking systems that were supposed to be unbreakable. In 2013, everything changed. Jimmy discovered a glitch in Silk Road that seemed almost too simple to be real. It wasn't in the servers, not in the encryption, not in the network layers. It was in the deposit and withdrawal buttons. When a user clicked deposit multiple times before the page refreshed, the system duplicated the action, effectively multiplying the credited amount. The same applied to withdrawals. And Jimmy realized something genius. By creating two accounts, he could send Bitcoin from one to the other and use the glitch to multiply the transaction. It wasn't hiking, it was mathematics, abused at the perfect moment. In just 2 weeks, Jimmy accumulated 50,000 Bitcoins, a fortune beyond comprehension, a financial nuke. And the Silk Road admins had no idea how he was doing it. He had beaten the world's most dangerous marketplace with nothing but timing and cleverness. After Jimmy exploited the Silk Road loophole and siphoned out 50,000 Bitcoins, the platform's internal security team began noticing alarming irregularities. Tens of thousands of Bitcoins had vanished without explanation. No hacked accounts, no breached servers, no broken firewalls. It was as if the money had simply evaporated. But the data teams eventually traced the pattern, and the threads all pointed to one thing: a single ghost user manipulating the system from the shadows. Ross Ulbricht, known as Dread Pirate Roberts, the legendary and feared creator of Silk Road, was furious. This wasn't just theft, it was humiliation. Someone had outsmarted the dark web's most feared empire using a simple button glitch. Ross dug deeper, tracing Jimmy's activity until he eventually reached him. He didn't send a warning, he didn't send assassins, he sent a message, direct. He offered Jimmy a reward of 4,000 Bitcoins, millions of dollars, just to explain how the hack was done. But Jimmy refused. That refusal changed everything. Ross Ulbricht was not a man who liked being denied, especially not by a hacker who had just stolen the equivalent of a national treasury from under his nose. The threat wasn't spoken, but it was understood. People who cross Silk Road don't survive. They disappear. Jimmy realized he was playing with fire. Not digital fire, real fire. So, he vanished. He fled to the Bahamas, hiding under layers of false identities, moving his fortune across dozens of wallets, and covering his tracks so thoroughly that even world-class investigators couldn't locate him. But fate wasn't on his side. In October 2013, Ross Ulbricht was taken down in a dramatic FBI operation inside a public library in San Francisco. Silk Road collapsed overnight. The entire dark web shook. This should have been Jimmy's happy ending. The man who wanted him dead was gone. The site he hacked was destroyed. But chaos doesn't always mean safety. In the confusion, Jimmy lost access to thousands of bitcoins, stolen by scammers, lost in corrupted wallets, or trapped in defunct exchange sites. Entire fortunes were wiped out in seconds. Still, Jimmy remained wealthy beyond imagination. And with the pressure temporarily gone, he lived like a king, flying on private jets, renting luxury mansions, throwing massive parties, and creating fake companies to hide his money like a ghost billionaire. Yet beneath the surface, a storm was forming. By 2019, Jimmy was a ghost legend in the world of cybercrime. A man with billions in Bitcoin. A man who had beaten the world's most dangerous marketplace ever created. A man who had outsmarted the US government and the criminals who lived in its shadows. But his downfall came from something so small, so stupid, so absurd that no Hollywood writer would dare use it. He invited a group of friends over for a party. Someone stole a handful of his money from his home. Jimmy panicked. Instead of staying silent like any smart criminal with 50,000 bitcoins should, he called the police. A billionaire hacker who robbed the dark web called the cops for a missing envelope of cash. This mistake cracked open the door. Police started asking questions, noticing inconsistencies, unusual behavior, and digital traces that didn't make sense. They alerted federal investigators who quietly began examining Jimmy's financial history. The more they dug, the more they realized. Jimmy was hiding something enormous. For months, cyber forensics teams dissected his digital footprint, wallets, transactions, accounts, machines. Then they made the discovery. Inside his home, hidden beneath the floorboards, inside a small electronics box, investigators found a single hardware device. A tiny hard drive weighing less than 50 grams. On that device, 50,000 bitcoins. At the time of the raid, they were worth $2.5 billion, the largest cryptocurrency seizure in the history of the world. Jimmy was arrested. His empire was seized. His companies dismantled, his wallets drained by the government. In April 2022, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, a shockingly small sentence compared to the magnitude of his crime. And then came the twist nobody saw coming. Some sources claim that Jimmy never truly served his sentence. Instead, he was quietly absorbed into one of the United States' most secretive cyber intelligence divisions, an agency so hidden that most Americans don't even know it exists. Why? Because recruiting a mind like Jimmy is far more valuable than imprisoning him. A man who hacked Silk Road is a man who can hack anything. A man who exploited the vulnerabilities of the world's darkest empire can defend against threats no one else can even see. And so the legend goes. Jimmy Jung didn't fade into obscurity. He didn't disappear into a cell. He vanished into the digital shadows, where brilliance, danger, and secrecy are the ultimate currencies. The hacker who stole $3 billion may now be protecting trillions.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.